bravo to you for learning from what doesn't work to learning how to schedule yourself with time in between, and again taking a walk and just being open and being available. It's you asked about safety. I mean, I think I have learned to trust my intuition.
DJ Sabi.
So, Marilyn is an author, passionate traveler, spiritual seeker, creative crafter, and lover of life. She lives in Southern California with her husband Scott and 4 black cats. Now retired, her 45-year career in the travel industry involved crafting journeys to wondrous destinations where her customers enjoyed unforgettable experiences. She's a tireless advocate for philanthropic organizations that serve and support women and girls in the developing world. Hi, Marilyn, and thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so excited to have you here because traveling is one of my passions. And so I'm really excited for you to share with me and share with the audience how travel changed your life. So, why don't you expand on that very brief intro and tell us a little bit about you and how you got into this industry?
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm excited to be here to share my story. It's I grew up in a place called Saginaw, Michigan, which is in the right at the thumb of the mitten of Michigan, and it's a nice small town, but I was bored. I think I needed something bigger. I remember lying on in our backyard on the grass in the summertime, looking up at the sky and seeing the vapor trails go across, and wondering where those people were going and what was it like to fly in an airplane, and would I ever fly in one of those things? It would just seemed like such a big dream. So, and I wanted to be an airplane pilot. People would ask me when I was 6 and 7 years old, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I would always say, "I want to be an airplane pilot, but I can't because I'm a girl." Well, fortunately, that did become an option, but by the time I was old enough to make that decision, uh, that wasn't really what I wanted to do. But I had an opportunity after I graduated from college. I had chosen a very stupid career choice in terms of my major, which was home ec education, at a time when they were discontinuing those curriculums from high schools, universally. So I really had no job prospects, and I had no boyfriend, and I had really no other choice but to move back home to Saginaw, Michigan, to live with my parents and figure out what was next. And I really had no clue. Meanwhile, my girlfriend who lived down the street from me had joined the Peace Corps after she graduated from college, and she would write me these lengthy airgrams from the Philippines. She had joined the Peace Corps, and she was living this adventurous, exciting, just full life. And I would write back to her, which, took a short paragraph because there was kind of nothing going on for me. And one of these airgrams that she sent me one day, she invited me to join her in a few months in the future when she would be finished with her Peace Corps assignment, and we could travel together through Southeast Asia and India. It was like, oh my God, I'm so there. And I probably the same day got myself a passport and a one-way ticket to Manila. And then I told my parents in that order. And I flew to the Philippines. It was early September of 1977. And I had been on an airplane one other time, but this was only my second airplane flight of my life. And it was exciting, and she was the traveler. She was the confident, assertive, attractive, you know, gutsy woman, and I was kind of her companion, kind of mousy
Mhm.
companion.
Mhm.
Things didn't quite work out as we had expected. We were going to travel together. And for a lot of reasons, that didn't happen. And I found myself at that point in Singapore with two choices: to go on by myself, which really I couldn't do that, or to go back home to Saginaw, Michigan. And it's like, well, I can't do that.
Mhm.
So I was really stranded and stuck. And I decided ultimately, after several days of indecision, to, okay, at least I'll go up to Thailand, kind of travel up the Malaysian Peninsula and into Thailand. At least I'll see a little bit of Southeast Asia and I can fly home. Well, by the time I got to Bangkok, I was pretty committed. Traveling solo was not hard. Sometimes it was challenging, but so is traveling with a friend.
Mhm.
And the freedom that I had to stay as long as I wanted, to do as much as I wanted. Everywhere I went, I would check into a low budget hotel or a guest house. There's usually somebody else checking in at the same time. It's like, "You wanna share a room? We can, split the cost," which they were pretty negligible anyway in terms of
Mhm.
expense. And so I made friends everywhere I went and met people on buses and trains and restaurants. You'd see another Westerner and sort of gravitate to each other. I had left home with a suitcase and a matching shoulder tote full of polyester clothes because all of the travel experts said take clothes that won't wrinkle, which was
Mhm.
rather inappropriate for Southeast Asia and the humidity and the heat. And the suitcase, I might add, this is ancient times before they had invented wheels on suitcases. And everybody at that point was traveling with a backpack. So I met a guy. You couldn't purchase a backpack in Southeast Asia because the locals didn't use such things. There was no such thing as Amazon.
Mhm.
And I met a guy who was going to be traveling back home, returning home. So he said, if you buy me a knapsack, a rucksack, you can use my frame backpack for your journey and then just ship it
Mhm.
home to me when you get home. So I had a backpack, and that is how I got around. And I had, a few changes of clothes. I'd rinse things out in a sink in cold water, and it it just worked. And
Mhm.
ultimately, I was traveling for 8 months through,
Wow.
well, starting with the Philippines, and then I was in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and then at that point, again, you couldn't go through Vietnam or Cambodia, any of those countries. I flew then to Sri Lanka, traveled through India, and also visited Nepal. And it was 8 months later that I finally returned home. Srinagar in northern India, in Kashmir in India, was the last place I was at. So ultimately, when I finally wrote a memoir, I titled it From Saginaw to Srinagar: My Journey from the Familiar to the Far Away. And this
Wow.
was the account of my 8 month journey, which I documented in this little journal, page by page. This is
Mhm.
one of my most treasured possessions. Um, the guidebooks, again, there was no internet. There was nothing like that those days. Tony Wheeler wrote this book, Southeast Asia on a Shoestring, and his companion volume, which was Across Asia on the Cheap. This covered Srinagar, or sorry, Sri Lanka and India and Nepal for me.
Mhm.
And this 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 was that was my Bibles. Those were my Bibles. And it transformed me from a mousy, insecure, not confident, uncertain, unsure, into Pretty much the opposite. I gained a lot of confidence. I gained a lot of assurance. I found my passion on that journey. I knew that travel would be in my future. I just didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, but I just knew I had to do more traveling.
Mhm.
Ultimately, when I came back home to the States, I got a job with a travel company in Dayton, Ohio, which was great for about a year. And then it was time to move on to someplace else. It wasn't the greatest fit for me as far as employer employee relations. And then I got hired by a company in Southern California. I moved here in 1981. And 4 years later, the owner called me in his office and told me he was going to retire. He was going to sell the company and he wanted to sell it to me.
Amazing.
It's like, I can't do that. I was 29 years old at the time. I didn't know anything about business. I was good at the job I did, but it was pretty limited. And he said, I'll help you. You can do it and I'll help you. And
Mm.
so I did. I survived. The company was a small travel company that did group travel for corporations and associations.
Mhm.
And it worked really, really well. I had a nice team of employees. But the one thing that wasn't part of it for me was traveling to weird places like India or
Mm.
Thailand or any of these developing countries that I so loved. And I woke up
Mhm.
one night with a dream and I just sat up in bed and I went, wow. And I thought that's a good name for a company. And so I founded the Wow Travel Club
Mhm.
and it became a little subset of my bigger company. And I traveled with small groups to the places basically I wanted to go and provided some extraordinary experiences for my customers. And we did lots of wow things that every
Yeah.
always had people posing with their
Yeah.
arms up in the air going, wow. And I loved it. I was just fulfilled and happy and blessed and grateful. And then COVID happened and travel came to an abrupt halt. And it was about time for me to start thinking about retiring if I was ever gonna do that. And so I
Mhm.
turned the company over to my vice president, who was poised and ready. And I'm happy to
Mhm.
say the Wow Travel Club is still happening. So my legacy
Great.
is alive, and I finally then had time to write the book.
Mhm.
And now I want to, the rest of my life, I want to inspire people to travel and discover not only what's out there in the world, but mostly what's inside,
Mhm.
because that's the opportunity when you get out of your comfort zone, when you get out of your bubble and
Mhm.
go and explore and see how vast this planet is and how extraordinary are the people, regardless of what they look like, regardless of what they wear, regardless of the language and the food and the religion and the culture and everything. We're
Mhm.
all the same at heart.
Yeah.
And
That's
that was the biggest discovery.
That's an amazing discovery, and, it's interesting to me as well that, like, traveling is so amazing because you're discovering and learning about new cultures and new ways of living, right? Because we can get so focused on our own way of living and kind of think that that's the only way, but there's so many ways to live a life, and so that's what I love about traveling, but also the fact that it is such an opportunity for discovery of your own self and what you are capable of as well. Because one thing that you said that I find really interesting was that the traveling was not hard. It was challenging. And so I thought that was a really interesting way to talk about travel as something that's challenging versus hard. And I'm wondering if you can kind of go into the differences between that and what you meant by that exactly.
Well, I think just in terms of our vocabulary, hard is considered a negative thing.
Mm.
We don't aspire, we don't gravitate toward anything that's hard. But most of us recognize challenge is necessary, and challenge can be a really fabulous thing in the end. Going through it is, it's
Uncomfortable.
uncomfortable, and that's how we grow. That's
Mhm.
certainly how I grew,
Mhm.
was through learning how to navigate by myself when I didn't think I could do it, and overcoming and just taking it one step at a time, one decision at a time. It
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
every day it just worked.
Yeah. And I think what else is really interesting is, or ironic in a sense, is that, a lot of the time we have to go out there, right? Like traveling the world to discover what's in here, And so there's a slight irony to that. I wanted to talk a little bit about also how you felt writing your memoir. Um, Going through your journal and your diary, and to see like the mindset shift from even probably at the start of your journal to the end of your journal was probably a huge transformation. But then from, this young woman, probably late teens, early 20s, young woman, to where you are now, and the kinds of memories that brought back as well for your journey.
Well, it was the start. It was the catalyst for everything that came later. I remember the day that I got home, my dad saw me and he exclaimed, he expected that I would have a shaved head and be wearing orange robes. He really did think, because I had stayed in India for 2 months, and
Yeah.
I think he was sure that I had joined a cult. And
Hmm.
again, back in those days, we weren't couldn't talk like this. I called
Yeah.
home collect once a month, and I
Yeah.
wrote letters home, but otherwise they didn't really know what was going on for me from,
Mhm.
place to place to place. But he said, "Oh, I'm so glad you haven't changed." And I just I shook my head, and it's like, if you only knew, Dad, maybe
Yeah.
not on the outside, but I have
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
It again, as I said, it was a catalyst for growth that carried me through the rest of my life,
Mhm.
and set me, as I said, on the path to a career that was fulfilling and fun. And I'm all along the way met the greatest people. And writing the memoir, it's an interesting question. Thanks for asking that. I hadn't really kind of connected the dots, but it was really fun to reread that and to remember and recall, oh yeah, I remember that.
Mm.
And just knowing, but all the way through it, it's like more people got to do this, more people got to do this.
Mhm.
And so that really, since writing this, uh, i- it wasn't a New York Times bestseller. It could be, but I didn't have the marketing budget to make that happen. I'm
Mhm.
hoping people will pick up the book. I've gotten great reviews. Everybody that has read it enjoys it and loves it. In fact, I'm now in Toastmasters. That, as I said, one of my goals now is to be on stage speaking
Mhm.
to audiences. So
Yeah.
I am practicing at my Toastmasters club. There was a young girl. She's a high school sophomore or junior, so she's in her teens. She was there with her mother, and she heard me give one of my talks about my travels.
Mhm.
She
Mhm.
contacted me later and said that she wanted, her assignment for journalism class was to interview and write a uh, interview somebody she admired and write a
Mhm.
story. And she wanted to interview me. I
Wow.
was very flattered.
Yeah.
So that's indicative of what I want to do. Is I want to inspire people
Mhm.
to take a risk, to travel, to
Mhm.
go, to grow. And I'm not sure if I've answered your question because I got off topic, but that's really my passion right now, is to,
Mhm.
because there's just no better way that I know
Mhm.
of.
Yeah. I would definitely say that traveling has taught me a lot about myself and definitely taught me a lot about other cultures as well. And there really is I believe, there's no other better way to learn than like feet on the ground because you can read all the books, you can watch all the documentary series and stuff like that, but you really don't understand and truly experience something until you're there living
Right.
it.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um leading on from that, hard versus challenging, what was your biggest challenge that you experienced? And it doesn't have to be even in that first trip because you've spent your entire life traveling, So in terms of this, like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to face? Because we all know travel stories and airline stories and things like that. So things happen. Yeah.
Um, oh goodness. I know there's a lot of them, and I'm gonna kick myself later this afternoon going, "Oh, why didn't I tell that story?" Here's an embarrassing, stupid story. I had gone to LAX. My niece was visiting me from Japan, and she had a flight home that morning. I had a flight, I believe I was going to Chile, 4, 5, 6 hours later than her. And got to the airport plenty of time, got her checked in and all of that. And I was traveling in business class, so I had access to the lounge. So I
Mhm.
was upstairs in the lounge on my computer, just, you know, I had tons of time, tons of
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
I finally looked at the time and realized, oh my God, my flight is leaving in like 10 minutes. I raced down to the gate and, they said, "Oh, we were paging you," but they don't page up in
They
the
don't page in
lounges.
the lounges.
And I had the hardest part was calling my staff and telling them, "You need to rebook me for tomorrow." Um, so that's one that sprang to mind.
That has
Um,
happened to me too, so I'm not
oh,
gonna lie, it
good,
happened to me too.
good. It just, I fortunately haven't had too many really, really challenging, stranded stories.
Mhm,
Um, and I think one of the things I learned from this early travel experience was go with the flow
mhm,
and just know that stuff's gonna happen and like, yeah, have your tantrum and
mhm.
then take a deep breath and
Yeah,
relax and
yeah.
know I'm how blessed and grateful and fortunate I am to have this opportunity in the first place
Mhm,
when other
mhm,
people have not enough to eat and
mhm. Yeah,
those people
yeah,
got it tough.
yeah.
So I again had a wonderful team that saved my ass more than once. Thank you, Gabriel, Howard, and Ellen. And um I've got a very tolerant and loving and forgiving husband who puts up with me. Um, so yeah, and he's in the kitchen right now, mumbling yes.
Mm.
So um, I'll think of more. I just can't think of them right now.
Sorry, you were cutting out there for a little bit.
Mm,
So we're having a blizzard here, a snowstorm, so the internet's been a little bit spotty, but
okay.
mhm.
Well, it's
Um,
81 degrees and partly sunny here in the Los Angeles
yeah,
area. So,
it's like minus 25
oh,
Celsius here.
oh
So,
dear.
yeah.
Oh, it's
So,
time for you to travel to someplace warm, I think.
I just got back from the south of Spain. So I was in Malaga and I went from like plus 20 degrees to minus 20
Oh,
degrees in like 24 hours. And I was like, why do I live here again?
yeah. Yeah, I remember those
Family.
Michigan winters. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Family is why I live here again. So yeah, Michigan winters would be very similar. Um, So one of the things that I thought was very interesting was you were talking about like making friends and then just like randomly checking into a room with people. And so like did you ever not feel safe, or were there ever situations where you didn't feel safe with doing certain things like that, or like because especially as a young woman traveling by yourself, like making sure that you're always staying safe. So what were some of the things or the precautions that you took in order to remain safe on your travels?
Um, well, I tried to be as observant as I could. I
Mhm.
also have to say that, well, okay. So in terms of my money, again,
Mhm.
back before people traveled with debit cards and credit cards, I
Mhm.
used
Mhm.
traveler's checks, and I had a little fabric pouch that I pinned inside my underwear, and
Mhm.
that's where I saved I kept my passport and my traveler's checks.
Yeah.
Um, that was, and I really didn't feel threatened much.
Mhm.
I did have one experience that I wrote about in my book. I had traveled to an island, the island of Penang, which is off the coast of Malaysia, and Tony Wheeler in his book had mentioned that there was crime there. There was, to kind of be careful because it was a place that had a little more crime than other places. So I kind of, carried that around in my head. I had met a girl in Singapore at one of the outdoor food courts, and we had had a wonderful conversation. She was Canadian, by the way.
Mm.
And as I was checking into my hotel in Penang, or my little guest house, there she was, and she was,
Mhm.
blonde hair, kind of unforgettable looks. And so we shared a room. We had gone out one evening to when all of the food stalls and food courts were being set up on the streets. And as we were standing there, I had a purse, and I had it, tucked under my arm. I didn't have the shoulder strap over my shoulder, and I
Mhm.
felt somebody come from behind. They grabbed my purse and
Mhm.
took off.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh my God. She and I had been sort of spending part of the afternoon reorganizing all of our stuff. And I had
Mhm.
taken out my passport and other things and laid them on the bed and hadn't
Mhm.
put everything back in the pouch
Mhm.
before we spontaneously went out for the evening. And it's like, oh my God, my passport is in that
Yeah.
bag that he just,
Yeah.
ran off with.
Yeah.
And this kid, the young kid, jumped on the back of a motor scooter and they took off. And
Uh-huh.
I took off after them. I'm running along in my pink flip flops
Mhm.
and I'm screaming at my passport, you can have the money, but passport, I need the
Yeah.
passport.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as the cycle sort of made a turn, a curve, I managed to catch up, and and I grabbed him by the back of his shirt collar. And
Yeah.
because I did that, the bike tipped over and the driver went running, and the snatcher boy, the purse went skittering along the sidewalk. And so snatcher boy lunged at it, but I beat him to it, and I grabbed
Yeah.
the purse first, and I'm like clutching it to my
Yeah.
chest, and he's
Yeah. Yeah.
struggling with me because he wants it badly. And there had been a million people around, and
Mhm.
in that I can still remember this moment. It was like there was nobody. It was him and me. And
Yeah.
then I hear footsteps, like big honking
Yeah.
footsteps, and I see this kind of giant man running toward us. Turns out he's an off-duty police officer.
Oh wow.
And I look at this snatcher boy's eyes, and his eyes get really big, like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. And he lets go and starts running, but the guy catches him, and he's kicking him. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. It's police brutality. Anyway, they caught the boy and they took him to the police station. They took me to the police station. I gave my statement and they said, will you stay and testify in court? And I'm like, but I was gonna move on to Thailand and I'm not staying long. And they said, That's okay. It'll be just probably day after tomorrow that tried." And I said, "Yeah, I can stay." So I testified in a Malaysian court with these Asian men who were wearing white wigs, like the old days of England. Um, Malaysia was once a British colony, as so many places were. And ultimately, the kid got 3 years at hard labor for his crime. And I got my purse back and then realized, even stupider, that I had left my passport on the bed in my room at the guest house. So, but that's kind of my most exciting story of
That's a very exciting, and not necessarily the kind of excitement I would be looking for on a trip,
right.
but yeah,
I wasn't looking
definitely.
for it either, but it happened, and
Yeah.
I just I just knew don't mess with me. I will not be victimized.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, so you had also mentioned, and since you actually made a living off of this, made a living off of traveling, and I wanted to talk about because you had mentioned you spent 8 months on the road during that first trip, and so I know one of the things that I really struggle with because I travel as a touring DJ, and so I'm often I'm in a new city every 2 or 3 days. And so you're constantly like packing and unpacking and packing and unpacking and new environments, new beds, new people, new languages, and all of these things. So one of the things that I personally struggle with while traveling is energy management. And so when you go on these long trips or you take these long tours, what are some of the things that you do to focus on managing your energy so that you don't get burnt out?
Well, one of the one of the gospel according to Marilyn that I preach is slow travel, if possible. And I know in terms of business and that sort of thing, it isn't always possible to slow down and travel slowly, as you mentioned, you're city to city to city to city. I don't have um a cure for that, for what ails you, other than eh, knowing that it was a choice to book yourself that way, to book yourself, you know, and not have a day or two in between at least.
Yeah.
um, but I do, people tell me about some of the itineraries. They're going to go to a place for a week and they're going to see, 7 places. And I just I kind of cringe at that, because every time you move, you lose so much time, whether you're going by train or bus or plane or whatever it is. You've got to, pack, get to the depot, the station, the airport, whatever it is, sometime in advance of your travel. And you've got the transit time, and then you've got the time to get to your next lodging and check in, and all of that takes really valuable time when you could otherwise be having an experience of the place. So I do encourage people, you're not going to see everything in a week. You're not going to see everything. It's quality over quantity, really, and it comes down to it. So yes, go see the main sites, but make sure your itinerary includes some downtime to just go and sit in a cafe. Just sit there and watch the world go by, and take a walk down the main street, but take a left or a right and go down some little, some side street and see what there is to see. And see if you can have a conversation with a local person that
Mhm.
isn't rushed, that isn't forced. And
Mhm.
those are really the experiences, at least that I remember most. It's one thing to go and see the sights and take the picture of the monument or the Eiffel Tower or the Taj Mahal or the whatever that you've seen it in pictures a billion million times. Yes, go
Mhm.
take that picture,
Mhm.
but that's really not, to me, what traveling is about. It's not just a collection of photos in front of monuments, but it's a collection of experiences at the destination.
Mhm. And memories, right?
Exactly.
Experiences and memories. Yeah. I would say like those I this past trip that I was on, or this past tour that I was on, I was doing a festival every weekend for 6 weeks, and then I also had some gigs during the week as well during that time, but I really made a purposeful attempt because I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna spend just the whole week in Amsterdam, and I'm booking, like, 5 days there because I just don't want to move anymore," and
Hmm.
I've been in that cycle where you're moving every 2 or 3 days, or, like, I have a gig in Amsterdam one day, and then I have a gig in Paris the next day, and so you're, like, off, and you just don't have any time to breathe, and then you get to the point where it's just like, I can't even get out of bed anymore, because I'm so tired. So this past trip, I made a very purposeful, choice to stay for, like, a week at a time in each city, and then also making a very purposeful choice to just plan nothing and just go like walk and sit in the cafes. And one of the most amazing experiences actually was on my very last night when I was in Spain, and I was in Malaga, and so they have these castles there, right? And so I was just sitting in the main square looking at these like ancient castles and the full moon, and I was by myself, but it was one of the most amazing experiences, and just soaking it in, the fact that like, wow, how lucky am I that I just get to be here and experience this. And then I ended up meeting a gentleman, and he asked me like, "Do you want to go for a walk?" And I was like, "Sure, let's go for a walk." And so then we walked around the Christmas market because all the lights are on for the Christmas market and stuff. And it was an amazing experience, and it's like something that I didn't plan, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Bravo to you for learning from what doesn't work to learning how to schedule yourself with time in between, and again taking a walk and just being open and being available. It's you asked about safety. I mean, I think I have learned to trust my intuition.
Mhm.
And when I meet somebody, if I was in the, at nighttime and I meet a gentleman who wants to take a walk with me, I have
Mhm.
to pay attention to, do I feel, like he's okay?
Yeah.
And then there's, there's plenty of unsafe things in one's
Mhm.
own hometown. It's not,
Mhm.
in fact, I would venture to guess, at least comparing the rest of the world to the United States, I would say it's safer most other places than it is in
Mhm.
my own country.
Mhm.
Given our liberal gun laws and that sort of thing, there's always,
Mhm.
a new tragedy every day, it seems like. So, uh,
Mhm.
traveling is not unsafe if you
Mhm.
are smart and pay attention.
Yeah, and I would say like for in my particular example, because it's Christmas time, the Christmas market is open until like 10 p.m. or whatever. There were thousands of people there.
Hmm.
So it's not like it was dark and at midnight and no one's around. So
Right.
it's about the intuition, but also just like general common sense, like don't go
Yes.
walking around at night with a stranger.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So things like that. Um, And then in terms of, helping and encouraging others to do so, and then also because one of the things you said straight at the beginning was having these big dreams, and also the fact that you didn't think that you could do certain things because you're a woman. And so that was something that really, really resonated with me. And you're really an advocate for supporting women who have these big dreams. So I wanted to kind of talk about that and how you incorporate the travel aspect into that and encouraging women to go for their dreams.
I don't really know how else to do it other than to share my story,
Mhm,
and to encourage them to take a risk. Um, there always will be people who are naysayers. There will be people who tell you you're crazy. Just know that. Know there will be
mhm,
plenty of people in your life who will discourage you.
mhm,
Listen to that voice inside. Listen to your intuition. Think about your dreams. And I especially want to encourage young people before they get a mortgage and a baby and a career and
mhm,
the things that sort of ground you. Uh,
mhm,
None of these are bad things, but they don't quite offer the freedom and the liberty that you have as a young 20 something
mhm,
to
mhm,
kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this for a few months or
mhm,
several months or a year or for as long as I feel like doing it until I run out of
mhm,
money,
mhm,
and have to go back and get a job.
mhm,
Uh, so there's kind of a gap if you think about the lifeline or timeline of some years where having the kind of journey that I'm espousing, slow travel, going someplace for several weeks at minimum, isn't
mhm,
realistic. But
mhm,
the younger people, and then people that are retired or close to retirement,
mhm,
it's an opportunity for them as well. And
mhm,
sometimes those people are more chicken because
mhm,
they haven't done it as a youngster. So the
mhm,
things that we do as a young person embolden us and uh, enliven us, I think, into a life of taking some risks and doing some crazy things that
mhm,
we might never do if we don't do them when we're young.
mhm,
And I,
mhm,
I just this morning posted on Facebook a memory from 2018 when I took a cruise to Antarctica and I jumped into the Antarctic Ocean.
wow.
Um, and I'm watching this little video clip and I'm like, oh, it was so cold. It was. And I knew it would be. And I'm standing there at the edge of this platform and the snow is coming down and there's icebergs around. And I'm in my bathing suit and I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I do it and it's exhilarating. It's freaking freezing,
Yeah.
but it's fun.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I just want to encourage people to have fun.
mhm,
And travel is one of the best ways to do that because there's
mhm,
just so many things that you can do. I mean, you could do them in your neighborhood. I'm not that I can jump into the Antarctic Ocean, but I can go bungee jumping. I can do a lot of things locally that I kind
mhm,
of don't do here, but I'll do them when I'm in New Zealand and I want to jump off a bungee bridge
mhm,
because it's just something to do while you're there. And
mhm,
somehow the floodgates open up, at least for me.
mhm,
When I'm traveling, I'm open to adventure. I'm open to new experiences more than I am when I'm home. When I'm
mhm,
I've got stuff to do and I have a schedule to meet and I have a dentist appointment this afternoon and this and
mhm,
that and the other thing. Somehow
mhm,
those opportunities, I don't create them when I'm
Mm.
home, but when I'm
Mhm.
away, when I'm in another country, when I'm in another city, somehow that's why I'm here. I want to try things. I want to do
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. And I think that's so interesting because I think that's, across the world, people don't take advantage of the things that are like right in their own backyard, like
Yep.
I know Parisians who have never gone to the top of the Eiffel Tower, they've never been to the Louvre or things like that. I know people from Barcelona who have never been inside the Sagrada Familia and things like that. And it's like, wow, like these things, especially coming
Yes.
from North America, like in North America, I find we don't have access to these historical things,
Right.
as readily as they do in Europe, and so there are Romans who have never been into the Colosseum, and they walk by the Roman Forum every day and like it's just like another thing. And so it's really interesting to see the mindset difference between people who are traveling versus the people like, oh, I'm here all the time. I mean, even me, like I live in Winnipeg. Not that there's a lot to see in Winnipeg, but like I never go to the Museum of Human Rights, like never ever, so it's across everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. I really love what you said about living in joy, and I really am a huge advocate for that as well because I personally believe that life is meant to be lived, and that's one of the thing that frustrates me the most about Western society, Canada and the US in particular, I think, is that we're just so focused on work. And that work has to be, there's a definition of work of what it is. And it's like, a 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or like 8 to 6 or whatever. And this is your working hours. And then you can like have your weekends or whatever.
Hmm.
But I really, I'm a huge advocate for like finding something that you love and that brings you joy. And then I guess the conflict is always that you also need ways to finance it.
Right.
And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how you manage to kind of find that balance because I think that's a struggle for a lot of people who are maybe working a 9 to 5 and who are only getting like 2 weeks vacation a year and things like that. And you have to kind of make those choices sometimes in terms of should I go and spend the money on the experience and having fun and living my life versus, saving for retirement or doing the responsible thing. Um, because I think sometimes people only think about the money and not necessarily the value of the experience itself.
And that is tough. And I was again so blessed to discover my passion, and which brought me great joy. I mean, it was
Mhm.
fun to go to the office every day. I surrounded myself with staff, with people. We had so many laughs and so much good, we did great work and
Mhm.
enjoyed it always,
Mhm.
both whether I was in the office or on the road somewhere. Met some wonderful suppliers from all over the planet that would come and talk to us about their hotel or their destination. So I was blessed as a career to be
Mhm.
really fulfilled financially
Mhm.
and philosophically and
Mhm.
funly, if that's a word. And I also
You made it fun.
recognize I just made it up, yeah. I also recognize that a lot of people haven't found that and aren't in a position to change or to seek it, and so
Mhm.
they go to a job that they endure it because it
Mhm.
pays the bills and provides the benefits that they need, um, and they get a 2-week vacation. I will always encourage people to go. Don't save the money for retirement because
Mhm.
you don't know if you're going to be healthy enough when you're
Mhm.
retired. You
Mhm.
don't know if when you're retired, you're going to be afraid. You
Mhm.
know, it's a it's something that needs to be to get you need to get practiced at it.
Mhm.
So go, you don't go in the cheap coach seats. Yeah, it's miserable, and then it's over with. And then you're
Mhm.
at some destination and you're looking around and you're in awe.
Mhm.
Find where that is. And it might not be on the other side of the planet. It might
Mhm.
be in the next state over, or it just might be in your, a few hours away. There's
Mhm.
plenty of places to find it. But I
Mhm.
do think no matter where you go, no matter how far you go, no matter how much you
Mhm.
spend,
Mhm.
if you go with an open mind and open heart, you will find wonder out
Mhm.
there. You
Mhm.
will find fabulous people to commune with, to communicate with, to dine with, to drink
Mhm.
with, to play with. And you have to leave home to do it,
Mhm.
no
Mhm.
matter how far you go.
Yeah.
So I would always encourage people, don't just save for retirement. Don't just save for some rainy day.
Mhm.
Do it now
Mhm.
because you don't know what the future brings.
Mhm. Mhm. So for because you started off your journey as a very young woman, so for younger listeners out there who are kind of just getting out of high school and trying to figure this out, like what did you do to finance your trip, for example?
Well,
I mean, the dollar might be a little bit different back then, but
yeah. And I had gone to community college for 2 years, so that was practically free.
Mhm.
And then I went to university. I got a little bit of a scholarship, but I'd always been frugal. I never
Mhm.
spent a lot of money on, designer clothes and things like that. So I
Mhm.
I had some money saved.
Mhm.
And all in all, this is gonna really date me as ancient, but I think in total my trip cost me about $2,000
For 8
um
months.
for 8 months. Now again, this is
Wow.
45 years ago, so
Yeah.
but comparatively,
Yeah.
when I don't remember what the minimum wage was back in those days,
Mhm.
but it certainly wasn't what it is now.
Mhm.
If you want to do it for a length of time, if you want to go for a while, plan to go on the cheap.
Mhm.
And going on the cheap means you're going to stay in a hostel. You're going to stay you're not necessarily, the bathroom is going to be down the hall, perhaps.
Mhm.
It's not room service. It's not,
Mhm.
uh, color TV in your room. It's not the creature comforts.
Mhm.
And that's the
Mhm.
trade off,
Mhm.
is to, kind of like live like a local almost, although I was still living at a level above most of the locals, I think, as I traveled.
Mhm.
And you meet the most exciting and interesting people too.
Mhm. Mhm.
And nowadays, again, back then I relied on a guidebook like this, but nowadays with internet and Wi-Fi and all of the ways to discover where to stay and how much it costs and how to get from point to point the cheapest possible way.
Mhm.
It can be done. You just
Mhm.
have to be
Mhm.
prepared to be uncomfortable sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah.
But to me, it's worth it.
But that's also part of the growth, right?
It
Just to
is.
be learning to be uncomfortable, learning to adapt to new situations, learning to make friends and all of those things. So one of the things that you're bringing up is the guidebook, and I keep remembering, I mean, um I'm dating myself a little bit, I think, but one of my first year university, and I did an exchange in England, and so I was living in England, and we didn't have like cell phones like we do now, so like I had like a little crappy flip phone that I was using while I was there, but I remember like learning to navigate the London tube and like walking the streets of London with just this little guidebook. And now I'm so reliant on my Google Maps and everything. I'm kind of like trying to think back to when I was 17 and doing this for the first time, and I'm like, did I really figure out how to like navigate London on my own without a phone?
Uh-huh.
And I guess I did, because I'm still here. But I'm trying to remember like what did I do? But I remember I had this guidebook with the London tube that I
Right.
used to get from point A to point B. So
It is. And nowadays again, everything is available at your fingertips. You don't even have to type it in. You just talk to your phone and it tells you the answer. And with AI, I mean, maps, I assume are obsolete nowadays, but um, I think that's a valuable skill is to know how to read a map, to know what is
yeah,
north, south, east, west. Um,
yeah.
and to your previous question too, as far as younger people, there are so many opportunities to study abroad. There are
Mhm.
so many opportunities to volunteer abroad.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's going to cost a lot more to go to Italy or to France or anywhere in Europe than it will be to go to Vietnam or to go to
Mhm.
Uganda or to go
Mhm.
to Argentina or
Mhm.
the developing world. That's really where I cut my teeth on my travel.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if you've got a limited income, it's not going to go as far if you set your sights on Western Europe or on one of the
Mhm.
countries where it's expensive. If
Mhm.
you're willing to if you're willing to go to a developing country, and I encourage
Mhm.
people to do that,
Mhm.
your money goes a long, long way.
Yeah, especially the Canadian dollar, not so much, but the American dollar for sure. So probably the most expensive thing would be the flight to get there.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. So, um, one of the questions I also had for you was out on all your journeys, because you're making friends everywhere you go and things like, are you still in contact with some of these people like over the years, or
Uh,
have you maintained some of these relationships?
Unfortunately, not to now. I mean, this is
Mhm.
45 years later, but there were a few people that I did keep in contact with for quite some time.
Mhm.
Even though back then, again, without Facebook and all of the other ways to stay connected
Mhm.
to people, that didn't exist. So it was
Mhm.
by literally writing letters and putting them in the post the old-fashioned way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I give those of us that made that effort to keep in contact with each other. It was not so easy as it is nowadays.
Mhm.
Um, I will say, too, just kind of to that point, when I traveled to India earlier this year, and I went back to Kashmir, to Srinagar, which was the last place on my 8-month itinerary. The first time I'd been back to India a few times, but never journeyed north to the state of Kashmir. When I was there 45 years ago, I stayed with a local family on their houseboat. People live on a Dal Lake in Srinagar, in the town of Srinagar, on houseboats, and they travel around on their gondola-like vessels called shikara.
Mhm.
And I stayed again on the cheap with a local family and rode around. The owner took me on the shikara, and I would admire these beautiful houseboats that were all carved wood and stained glass and just spectacular. And they had banners hanging off the side, 5-star houseboat. And I
Mhm.
remember wondering if I would ever come back to this
Yeah.
place, and if I ever do, will I ever stay on a 5-star houseboat?
Mhm.
Well, I think you can guess. Yes, I did. I stayed on this gorgeous houseboat with, you know, beautiful carvings, and it was just lovely and comfortable and spectacular.
Mhm.
But thinking back to my experience of 45 years ago with this staying with this local family was so special and wonderful. And I happened to mention to the owner of this houseboat, I had the name written in my journal of
Yeah.
the family, and I mentioned to him my story. And unbeknownst to me, he made some inquiries and he asked around and he found the family that I had
Really?
stayed with 45 years ago. Now, unfortunately, the principals were deceased, but
Mhm.
I visited a I think a nephew. I can't remember now all the lineage, but this
Mhm.
young man and his mother, the owner, he drove me to the place on the other side of the lake where they were living in a very dilapidated, rundown houseboat. The roof was leaking, and it was certainly not even fit for a low budget traveler.
Mhm.
But I made friends with this young man named Mudasir,
Mhm.
and he and I, in fact, I was on WhatsApp with him this morning.
Oh, wow.
We have stayed connected, and my husband and I have gifted him some money such that he could buy his own shikara, his own gondola, and he's now making a living taking tourists around the lake.
Wow.
And he's just eternally grateful to me
Mhm.
for helping him, supporting him, and it was I'm very generous and very philanthropic in a lot of ways, and I give to organizations and support organizations. And this was one opportunity to support kind of one on one
Mhm.
to somebody who's connected to my life story.
Mm. Yeah.
His relatives um, hosted me in
Mhm.
their houseboat in a special place that
Yeah.
is mentioned in the title of my book, and it's just it's kind of like the circle goes round and round, and
That's what I was gonna say. It came full circle at the
yeah,
end.
and he named his shikara after my granddaughter. And
Wow.
he dreams of the day that she will visit. She's not even 2 years old yet, so it's going to be a while. He dreams of the day that she will visit Srinagar, and he will take her around the lake. It's
That's
like,
such a beautiful story of connection, and all of
yes,
these relationships that can evolve, across continents, across time, across space. And it's just, that's such a beautiful story. I really love that.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
It really makes me happy to just think about again what there is out there. And
Mhm.
he's a Muslim, and you know I'd never, until I traveled to Asia, I'd never met a Muslim person
Mhm.
before. I mean, now
Mhm.
I I live in the Los Angeles area, so it's a melting pot here. But
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
there, people are wonderful people everywhere you go, no matter what
Mhm.
faith tradition they follow, and
Mhm.
it's disheartening to me to see what's going on, and there's always been prejudice. There's always been ethnocentricity, if that's the right word.
Mhm.
Um, it's in very big display right now,
Mhm.
and I will do everything till my dying day to dispel that and to encourage
Mhm.
people to reach out and
Mhm.
connect with somebody that's different.
Yeah. And I think, especially when it's almost like living in an echo chamber, right? When you are staying home and you're kind of almost
Yes.
interacting with a certain subset of people or a certain group of people. And it's very easy to have preconceived notions of what people are like outside of your own little
Yes.
community. And then once you experience that in the greater world, you can see that your preconceived notions are obviously quite wrong a lot of the time. And so that's one of the amazing things about travel as well, is just like learning that there's more to the world than just us and the way that we live. So
Yeah.
that. Mhm. Um one of the things that I struggle with a lot of the time when I travel, people make fun of me all the time actually because I'm Canadian, and then they say, "Well, don't you at least speak French too?" And I'm like, "No, like I come from the English part of Canada. No one speaks French here." And so I'm unilingual. And so I'm wondering on your travels, did you ever immerse yourself enough that you were able to learn other languages, or how did you navigate the language barrier on your
Well,
journeys?
yeah, I have one regret, although I don't know that I would have um, really learned anything from studying Spanish in high school. We did have to take a language, and the choices were Latin or Spanish.
Mm,
Um, and I had a pretty horrible teacher, and I also wasn't motivated. Um, I am also unilinguistic. I wish I spoke another language, but I don't.
mm,
So, what I did to navigate, first of all, most of the countries that I visited had been, or many of them had been British colonies once upon a
mhm,
time, and so
mhm,
English is sort of embedded
mhm,
in their culture. So I was able to
mhm,
get around a lot of places with
mhm,
my English.
mhm,
I always learn how to say hello and thank you and please, the
mhm.
basic things.
Where's the bathroom?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Um, it wasn't difficult
Mhm,
in the places that I went. Nowadays, again, you can travel with your phone, and you can do the translation services. So
yeah.
I think it would be easier now than it was back then.
Mhm,
But a smile and good intentions, um, always it was just always so fun sometimes to go someplace where they did not speak any English, and I
mhm,
obviously didn't speak their language. And yet, if I was ordering a meal or trying to communicate, it was it was another way of connecting,
mhm,
and people were helpful.
mhm,
I might be trying to navigate my way around with one person, and then somebody else would come and join the non-conversation, and then
mhm,
somebody else would come,
mhm.
and somehow some way they with pointing or whatever, it
Yeah,
you figure it out. But in the
yeah.
meantime, you made a connection with a stranger, with a smile and a heartfelt
Open heart.
thank you.
Mhm,
Exactly.
mhm.
And that's it's kinda cool sometimes to not be able to communicate with words.
Mhm, mhm. It's amazing actually because, like, one of the other things, so as a DJ, I'm also a dancer because I play music for a specific genre of couples dance, and so a lot of the time I'm in places where I don't speak the language, and the person that I'm dancing with, we don't speak the same
Uh,
language, but we can communicate with each other through the dance.
yeah.
That's pretty beautiful too when you have this amazing, beautiful conversation with somebody and you still don't speak the same language.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's
Really
really
cool.
fun because you can go anywhere in the world and make these connections with people. And
Yeah.
yeah, like they're really beautiful, meaning connections, and no words were spoken. So,
Oh, neat. Oh, I
mhm.
love it.
So, so my last question for you is, out of all your travels, what is your favorite place?
My favorite place has to be India.
Mhm.
Um, the developing world are my favorite destinations. But India has a very, very special place in my heart, quite likely because I spent 2 full months there at the end of my trip. I traversed it. I entered India, had been in Sri Lanka, so I took a ferry over to this one of the southernmost points of India and traveled, all the way up to the furthest north point in Kashmir. I had 6 months of travel under my belt at that point, so I was pretty good at what I was doing, and was pretty comfortable with the whole experience. So and having been to Philippines and Malaysia and Thailand and Sri Lanka and all of these, let's call it poor countries, undeveloped countries. I was really afraid. India has this stigma, When I was growing up, India was always the worst place. The people in India were starving harder, worse than anywhere else on the planet. Um, it and as I took the ferry over and entered India, I was like, oh my God, is it gonna be this horrible experience? Am I gonna, and it obviously wasn't. I mean, yes, there are plenty of hungry people in India and deserving people in India and every other place that I went to and lots of other places on the planet. But I just I just loved it. It's a big, big country and a lot of different cultures from north to south, east to west.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and I've been back many times. And I have to, whenever anybody asks me that question, that's my answer. And I usually get this kind of recoil, like, really? India is your favorite place? You are crazy,
Yeah.
lady. Um, but it's a trip. Truly, in every sense of the word, is a trip.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. So we're getting close to the end of our time now. In terms of people wanting to connect, what are the best places for people to find you online?
Okay.
Bentley, you have a book that's published on Amazon, I believe.
I had, yeah, my book is available on Amazon or from Barnes and Noble. The book is called, and I don't know, you can probably read backwards,
Yeah.
From Saginaw to Srinagar, My Journey from the Familiar to the Far Away.
Okay.
And again, my name is Marilyn C. Murphy. So the book is available. I have a website called MCM Rights, as in WRITES.com. That's a website that I set up after I published my book,
Okay.
and I blog there not often enough, so I'm challenging myself to 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 uh blog some more. My email address is Marilyn at mcmrights, WRITES.com. I'm active on Facebook. I'm less active on any of the other social media platforms, but I think my Facebook moniker is Marilyn C. Murphy. I'm not sure.
Well, you sent me all the links, so we'll
Okay.
be sure to put it in the description below and direct people to where they can find you for more.
As you can probably tell, I love to talk about this stuff. So if anybody wants to contact me with their ideas or their questions, or if they want me to come and speak to their group about travel and the wonders of the world, I'm happy to do so. Welcome the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I am so grateful for having you on the show. This was such an interesting conversation. I love traveling too, so I could continue to talk about it for hours and hours. Thank you again so much for being here, and hopefully we'll have you back on sometime soon.
Oh, it would be my pleasure. And I'm very, very grateful, Samantha. Thank you so much for having me. And if your travels ever bring you to the Los Angeles area, I hope you'll reach out. It'd be great fun to get together. So,
Yeah, it would be wonderful to meet in person. So
yes.
thanks again.
Okay. Thank you. Bonjour. Arrivederci. Namaste. Thanks. Bye.
DJ Savi.